Hey everybody, welcome once again to the Football Fandemic, where today we're going to be looking at all of the playoff scenarios of clinched, eliminated, and whatever's in between. We're going to look at the last of the bye week teams. We're going to see what's going on in each of the games that have passed and are coming up. All more here on the Fandemic. I saw you look at me, Josh. I took a drink of my coffee. That's just
coffee
the way it's going to be. Coffee sip. Hey, we have Brandon back with us today. Josh and I here as well, and we are ready to look at some football. Before we really get into what's going on in the games, we're going to talk about some of the news going on this week. There's not a ton, but there is some. The league evidently has decided to change a little bit of the drug and PED regulations. I don't know if you guys saw that. They decided marijuana, they're going to, up how much can be in your system before it's considered a violation. I guess that's now a legal thing in many states. And so there's been a lot of pushback on that. I feel like there was something else, something about missed drug test and some fentanyl stuff if you happen to need it medically. Is there a medical reason for needing fentanyl? I guess.
Yeah, it's when one of my foster sons had a surgery, they needed to give him fentanyl, even though he had been born exposed to it, and that was basically the only thing to help him with his pain at that time. He was only 3 months old though, but yeah, I guess I don't know.
So they've made it so that you will have to come and meet with them about that, but that has been it won't cause a suspension or anything like that. They've changed some of the performance enhancing drug, punishments a little bit. I don't know that it was anything huge, but it will change maybe people that are on your teams being suspended for games. I think more has turned into fines. So we'll see how that does anything. I don't know that that's a big news item. Other news items. Let's see. We had the Ravens suspended Deontay. What's his name?
Deontay Johnson.
Johnson, yes, for one game because he said, I'm not going to play against the Eagles or something.
Yeah, he just decided. They told him to go into the game, and he decided not to. And it is the rule of law now in the NFL to stop trading for Steelers wide receivers because they all, once they leave Pittsburgh, all end up disappearing or becoming head cases, apparently.
You remember when Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown were leaving? Antonio Brown were leaving Pittsburgh, and I thought, man, what are they doing? They are making a bad decision. But boy, did it look right in both cases. And ever since then, it seems like Mike Tomlin has a way. By the way, Russ Wilson. It looks like he might play himself into a contract next year. I thought he was just a stopgap and they were going to go Justin Fields, but he is looking good with Pittsburgh and they are leading that division right now. That's crazy.
Yeah, he was making some really good off-platform throws in that win against Cincinnati. The Bengals defense is horrendous, but yes. he was doing some really good things.
Yeah. What other news do we have here in the football world?
Probably the biggest mistake that's been made all season. There was a coach firing.
Yeah.
Matt Eberflus is out of Chicago.
I believe your Packers were the impetus for that firing. Am I not right?
No, that was Thanksgiving against the
that's
Lions.
right. This was Detroit. They lost by 3, which was pretty crazy to me, right?
Yeah. Your quarterback takes a sack, getting him just outside of field goal range. Was there 33 seconds left? And then you don't get the ball off until 5 seconds left, and you throw an incomplete pass to finish the game.
With a timeout left.
With a timeout. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of on both of them. Eberflus probably should have called the timeout right away, but once it got past 15 seconds, then Caleb Williams needs to know you need to snap the ball. They were set up with about 15 seconds to get ready to throw the football, and he waited until it got down to 6 seconds to finally snap it because he was making his reads, and I guess that he changed the play. So I think it's multifaceted who that mistake is on. But yeah, Matt Eberflus certainly has not done himself any favors with the 6-game losing streak and this cycle that I think Brandon has talked about of Chicago getting a new general manager, then firing, or then the next year getting a new head coach, and then the next year getting a new quarterback, and having those all staggered starts of these, 3 pivotal points of your team leadership. It just keeps rolling. So like next year we'll see Ryan Poles get fired, and then the year after that Caleb Williams will get traded, and they'll have to bring in a new quarterback that the next head coach won't necessarily want. So it's all over the board here for the Chicago Bears.
I feel like Ryan Poles of this triumvirate has done well for the Chicago Bears, gotten them lots of picks, gotten them lots of players, kind of put them in a right position with some good players, but for some reason it's just not coming together. So I think the coach was the right decision. Caleb Williams is going to have some responsibility in all this, but I think Matt Eberflus, I think everybody knew he was on his way. I know several Bears fans I know, including my brother-in-law, were very happy. They were singing songs of joy when Eberflus was let go. And so, unfortunately for you, they're going to probably end up with, hopefully, well, maybe a better coach. Maybe.
Well, you got to think about it. You mentioned Ryan Poles did absolutely amazing things, like preparing the team. Picks
I think I
and
said
Simons.
good. I don't know if I said absolutely amazing, but point taken. Yes.
The absolute worst part of his job has been hiring staff, and some of that is the head coach, but he's got to take more responsibility for that. If Eberflus is not the guy, you got to get rid of him faster. On a side note relating to the Bears, there's a really good 10-minute interview on the McAfee show of Bill Belichick breaking down what happens at the end of this game. We all know Bill Belichick, amazing situational football coach. In his words, in the very shortened version, I'm not going to take the full 10 minutes. It was they were not working enough in the building on what to do in game-winning situations, and I think these past 6 weeks have kind of proven that. I know one of those games was a blowout against the Cardinals, but they just Washington really made all of it fall down the Hail Mary that I was very happy that happened. It really broke them for the rest of their season. But go check out on the McAfee show, Bill Belichick's interview breaking this down is really, really good.
I have a question. Didn't Ryan Pace hire Eberflus? Was it Poles?
It was Poles. They were both hired in the same 2022, because the Poles was in line to potentially be. He was one of the finalists for the Vikings general manager job that same year. Eberflus, I think we interviewed that same year, and then we ended up with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell, thankfully.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen some interesting things out on the Twitter universe. Of course, take that with a grain of salt. And I don't know how accessible this is. Colin Cowherd had tweeted out a video of the Bears trading draft capital to get Kyle Shanahan as their head coach. I'm not exactly sure how that
past
works.
The Bears, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't. If I'm San Francisco, I'm saying no thanks, because Kyle Shanahan's the best offensive mind in the game. But yeah, I mean, I think that sort of thing has been done before, trading for a head coach. I think John Gruden from Oakland to Tampa Bay back in the day was one of those situations.
Was there nothing with Sean Payton? Why did I feel like there was something like that with Sean Payton?
I think he was still maybe under contract, so maybe there was some compensation that they agreed to in order to release him from his contract so that he could go to Denver. I think there was something like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, other big news from the past week. Anything? I felt like there was one other thing.
Christian McCaffrey is likely out for the season. And their backup running back, Jordan Mason, is missing at least the next 4 games because of an injury, and he was placed on injured reserve. So it is up to Isaac Guerendo to kind of lead that 49ers team that is falling apart and being assembled with duct tape and right now, because everybody just continues to lose themselves to injury. So Guerendo's he's been good in his limited action, but I mean, this becomes a much more pass first team, I feel like, now that you don't really have a bell cow running back, and I'm not sure if Brock Purdy can succeed in that sort of environment, at least for the rest of this year.
I'm not going to lie. I kept holding out that I thought the 49ers were going to win that division somehow. I have changed my mind. I believe it's the Seahawks from here on out. But when we see this week, I think it is Bears versus the 49ers, and you look at their win-loss columns and they look like almost exactly the same. It's like, man, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, I think they'll line up right now. The Bears are 4-8. The Niners are 5-7. They'll probably both be 5-8 by the end of this week. I would think, but the 49ers still are not. I mean, we've seen greater miracles happen throughout our history. Winning, they're only 2 games behind first place, but they are in 4th place. You basically got to win out the season if you're gonna.
And you're talking about winning out the season with, like we said, a patchwork duct tape team that's like just being held together with string, you know. So we'll see. We'll see. It could happen. I strongly feel like it will not. But all right. So I think it was our news. Trevor Lawrence out for the year, right? He had that concussion. What's his name with the Texans was suspended for 3 games. Yeah, and came back with a middle finger to everybody on his Instagram post. You want to make me the villain? I'll be the villain. I'll come back and get you. So he's out for 3 weeks, and then luckily we've played both of our games against the Texans. So whoever he's trying to kill when he comes back, it won't be us. But
not Anthony Richardson.
Richardson.
The corniest post of all time. Also, like if you're posting the Joker on the picture of the Joker on Twitter in 2024, it's like, okay, let's read the room a little bit. You're not the main character that you think you are, Mr. Shahir. But it was a dirty hit to Lawrence, and I mean that makes the Jaguars, at least for Jacksonville fans, you know, they can, even though they probably could have turned off the TV for the rest of the season anyway, Lawrence at least made it interesting. Mac Jones will not make it interesting at all throughout the rest of the season. So I don't know what else. Jacksonville State, I think, is playing in the conference, their conference championship for football. So that's what the Jaguars fans can watch instead. Other than that, like the Orlando Magic, I think are doing pretty well. So those are some other TV viewings for you Jacksonville fans. I don't know how far Jacksonville and Orlando are from one another. They might not be even in the same area of Florida, but
I thought one was more north. Jacksonville's more north.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody last night we were playing a heads up game, and somebody said it was somebody who doesn't really know sports. They're like, the football team in Florida. And I'm like, Miami Dolphins. And they're like, no. And I'm like, Buccaneers. And they're like, no. And I'm like, who else is in Florida? Oh, Jacksonville Jaguars. So, anyway, we got there eventually. This does give the Jacksonville Jaguars a good excuse to go ahead and tank the rest of the season and see what they can do in the draft, because they're like, oh yeah, we're going to just go ahead and get him that surgery for his, was it his shoulder? It was his shoulder, right? I started to say ACL, but I think it was his shoulder. Anyway, he's going to get that and be done for the year. They're going to have Mac Jones. Nobody expects anything of them. They're not at the number 1 pick right now, but they can get a top 5. So it gives them a reason to do that and to hate the Texans, which is always good. I love everybody who hates the Texans. That's good.
Yeah.
I've got a question.
Okay.
I've been seeing this go around the past 2 weeks. I don't know if we covered it the week before Thanksgiving. The future of Aaron Rodgers in New York.
Oh yeah. Well, he has redone
came
his
out
house.
He redid his house. He talked on the McAfee show. If they'll have him, he'll stay. He quote, a couple more years is what he said. Right now he's trending below Zach Wilson, which I never thought I would have said. What realistically do we think goes on in New York? I mean, he's the most polarizing quarterback in that city right now. I'm not holding out for Drew Lock or anything.
Here's the question. Who's their option? That's the biggest question right now for me. It would have to be somebody in the draft, because
they're 3-9. They're going to get a top pick.
Yeah. So my guess is, would they, what is it? 35 million for next year?
Yeah,
And
pretty
that's
significant.
a big insurance. I don't know. I feel like right now the state of New York is pretty uninfatuated with Mr. Aaron Rodgers. He came in, he brought all of his old teammates that all seemed to be washed up, and he kind of was doing the de facto general manager thing, like saying, I'm not saying who should be hired, but you could see by who was being hired, who was giving a lot of credence to the GM role there, even though there is a GM in place. I feel like he's done, but
is there a point where we say, Aaron Rodgers, you are or are we saying retired? Are you a Las Vegas Raider?
If history tells us anything, he'll be a Minnesota Viking for the next 2 seasons.
You guys got Daniel Jones.
Yeah, well, yeah, we went. Yeah, we have Daniel Jones now, and the Jets. If you are looking for a quarterback who has been like really good, that had been much maligned earlier in his career, that's going to be a free agent. Sam Darnold can come your way. He was a
Jet before. He knows the place.
That's right. He's familiar, and he gets to throw to Devontae Adams now.
Yeah,
realistically, Adams.
he's not going to be a Viking. We know what they're doing. They're going to have Drew Lock as like the veteran, but it's going to be JJ from here on out.
Yeah,
and they just know that Sam Darnold's going to be too expensive next year because of the way he played this year. So
there's not a spot in the NFC North for him if he's looking for revenge against the Packers. Right. I think Jared Goff is good. Caleb Williams is good. JJ and Daniel Jones, they're good. And Jordan Love, he's not returning to. Aaron's not going to return.
I wouldn't say Daniel Jones is good.
Yeah,
but he's a backup. So.
He's more good on that team than Aaron Rodgers.
Well, that may be true. We always have this idea that Aaron Rodgers can pull whatever it is out because he's done it. Oh, relax, RELAX, guys. We're going to pull this, and then he'll go on a win streak that's like crazy. But I think that time is past. And
is he a Dallas Cowboy?
That would be weird.
Reunited with Mike McCarthy.
If Mike McCarthy stays, yeah, that would be interesting. He might be. I mean, he's got this new Netflix documentary coming out, Enigma, so he might be able to just cash in on being a movie star for the rest of his life.
We've seen it before.
I'm trying to think if he doesn't play for the Jets, if he even wants to play anymore.
It would have to be the right situation. I mean, I don't think he's going to sign with Vegas. Brady's not going to call him up and say, "Hey, we need you for a year."
No.
I don't think he would do that.
I mean, even if you look at the quarterback needy teams, I don't see him thinking, I want to put myself in that situation right there. That's a good situation with where I'm at in my career. Here's what happened. He really wanted to be Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. I won a Super Bowl with one team. I go to a second team. I win a Super Bowl with that team. He really wanted to be in that conversation, in that group. You know what? I don't think he's ever going to make it there. I don't think he's ever going to take the Jets. Even if he would stay next year, I don't think he takes the Jets to the Super Bowl.
To be fair, if he did a Peyton Manning, it would be a defense that drug his dead corpse across the finish line for a Super Bowl. Peyton was not the X factor in that Super Bowl win.
Peyton, though, was smart enough not to talk a bunch of trash, but that's the difference between them.
Yeah.
So
I don't think the Jets have the defense right now to be able to pull up Aaron to the level that he's wanting to go. And I don't really know a team that could.
Yeah. We'll just have to see what Woody Johnson feels like as he goes into this next year. It'll definitely be something we're all watching. But he did redo his house, so that has to count for something, right?
Yeah. He's got a private jet. Pittsburgh's not that far if they decide not to go Russell Wilson. Yeah, I didn't like that one either.
Yeah. All right. Hey, let's go back and just look at the highlights of games that happened this last weekend. We won't hit every game, but let's talk about some of the games. Obviously, we talked about the Lions and Bears on Thursday night. The Bears got close to the Lions, much closer than the Colts got. What was it? It was like some 20-something to 6, or I forget, but it was bad. There's 3-point game. Couldn't do it and got their coach fired. But let's look at some other games. Obviously, Giants, Cowboys, who cares? Cowboys won. Big deal. Was there anything in that game you guys even cared to talk about? Me too. Yeah. But we did have the Packers, Dolphins. Obviously not a hard game for you guys. It didn't seem like, and but I can't imagine you not wanting to say a few words about it. So I'm going to hand the floor to Brandon. What do you think about this Packers versus Dolphins?
I loved it. I'm obviously before every single game, like my heart is beating. I'm nervous. I've seen the Packers just fumble away games that we were supposed to win in the past, or have them way too close for comfort. I think we've all been there, right? And so before every game, I'm nervous. I was overall pleased with it. Josh Jacobs, he's looking good. Jordan Love's healing really well. I was talking with one of my friends down in Texas, another Packers owner. He's the dean of the college I did my master's degree in. That's how I met him. And we both own the Packers, so it's good. But with Jordan Love's injury, the offense does look significantly different. And this is a plug for Matt LaFleur's genius of just not sticking to a game plan, but adjusting to what your players can actively do.
Yeah.
Last year, Jordan Love was exceptionally well in the bootleg. Exceptionally well. The bootleg play action sort of deal. We've seen exactly 0 snaps this season of Jordan Love doing that. Exactly 0. And part of that was his injury in week 1, right? Hurts the leg. It's a bit more difficult to do that. He's taken more shotgun rather than under center while he's been in games, and he's been finding ways to be successful with that. This was one of the first games in a long time where Jordan Love did not have a turnover, which is another significant point. And so he's starting to figure out a different style of play. His leg is still not 100%. I think it will be in the next month, assuming Packers make playoffs. Right now, they'd have a pretty decent shot at getting a wild card spot. I expect to see more of the bootleg play action come playoff time. This whole Thanksgiving week of games, while I was watching, NFL Red Zone, they brought out a stat for the first time since sometime in the 70s, early Super Bowl era. We had the most games that were within 1 score of each other.
Yeah.
And the Packers were one of the few games that were not that. 30-17, greater than 8 points. The Commanders got a plug for Josh Haupt, 42-19, also out of the realm of 1 score. They very mightily handled the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. And you were right. There were so many games that were just so close. This next game, Chiefs versus Raiders, I feel like this is like,
how did
scary.
they get away with it? How did they get away with it? That's what I need to know.
Here's the worst part is we've seen so many games this year by the Chiefs where they win by a point or 2 points or 3 points, and that's it. And yeah, their record is great, but man, they look like a team that's going to get in the playoffs and lose to me this year. Or, yeah, I mean, I just don't know how they keep pulling out these. Raiders are not a great team. Let's not kid ourselves. It's not like the Raiders are a great team, and they almost beat the Chiefs. What in the world's going on, and how do the Chiefs keep coming out on the top end of this? I just don't know.
I'll tell you what, they did not do that against Buffalo, and that's who I'm hoping sticks the dagger to their heart in the playoffs, just because we've seen it so many times. Kansas City has gone and beat Buffalo in the playoffs, and every year while we've done this podcast, Matthew and I are like, all right, this is Buffalo's year. This is the time Buffalo's going to beat Kansas City in the playoffs, and every time we've been wrong. But not this year, Matthew. Not this year. They handled them well in the regular season. Just do the exact same thing in the playoffs. I think it's a nice storybook ending for the Bills.
It'd be nice for us.
It would be. It would be.
The rest of Chiefs Nation would hate us, but yeah, who cares?
And Taylor Swift, she would also not like us.
Again, who cares?
They're just the Chiefs are like a parasite right now. They just latch on to whoever they're playing and play exactly to their level, and then just feed off of them until they've died and they've barely escaped with that. I don't know what is going on in the water in Kansas City or what sort of voodoo is Andy Reid starting to embrace, but like it is something that it can't be sustainable, but also it has been sustainable so far.
Right. It just blows my mind.
I'm going to say it's not in the water, it's in the barbecue sauce.
If they end up going all the way to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl by like 2 points, this will be a year to remember. It'll be like, remember that year when the Chiefs just barely won every game except that one against the Bills?
Yeah.
And then they sweep the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's just not even a contest. I would love to see. I think the Super Bowl America needs is Buffalo Detroit.
I agree. I agree 100%. We're all done with Kansas City. Sorry, Patrick. Sorry, Andy Reid. I like Andy Reid more than Patrick Mahomes, but still sorry.
I do want to get Josh's hot take on Bo Nix. It's been a few weeks. Bo Nix is.
Well, let's talk about this game for just a second. This was against the Browns, and I just want to say, I believe, okay, first of all, Colts Nation was really rooting for the Broncos to lose because we play them coming out of our bye. That would put us tied with them if they lost, and we won against them, giving us a better shot. As it is, they won. But I noticed that Jameis Winston threw more touchdowns for
Denver.
Denver. Yeah. I was like, for the Bo Nix for Denver than Bo Nix did, right? Didn't he throw more pick sixes than Bo Nix threw touchdowns?
Yeah, he did have 2 interceptions, and Bo Nix had one touchdown. So
that's what happened, man.
Jameis Winston, I guess he 6 of his passes in that game resulted in touchdowns for one team.
For somebody. He was doing good. That's like his 30 and 30 year, right? 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. He just keeps it equal.
Bo Nix, I mean, that throw, the 93-yard touchdown to Marvin Mims Jr. was beautiful. One of the top throws of the year. Like it beat a cover 2 or a Tampa 2 defense where you have the safety or linebacker, that's kind of coming up to the middle to try and stop that deep middle part of the field that can become vulnerable against cover 2, and he squeezed it in past everybody. So that was a really good throw. He did have a couple of weird plays where it seemed like he was trying to get out of structure of Sean Payton's offense, and he's been at his best when he has been in structure of Sean Payton's offense. And I think it was even a couple of plays before, or maybe even the play before that 93-yard touchdown, he rolls out to his right, and then he tries to go over on this crosser on the opposite side of the field, and even Troy Aikman was like, I'm not sure what Bo Nix is looking at right there, because he has a running back right in front of him, and that's been the shot that the running back right in front. I mean, maybe he's hearing these voices, oh, Bo Nix can't throw deep down the field, and he's just trying to prove that he can. But it was a dangerous pass. It wasn't intercepted, and Troy Aikman was still not done chiding him before mid-chide the touchdown to Marvin Mims Jr. happened.
Mid-chide.
so he's been looking better and better every week. I haven't looked at a ton of the film from this game outside of just what I saw live. But he's having a good last 3 or 4 games.
I'll take everyone back to the insider information I got when Sean Payton came back here to Charleston, Illinois, stayed with a family, and told them I was more excited about Bo Nix than any quarterback in this draft, and everybody's going to be amazed when they see him play. And when they told me that, this family that he stayed with, I'm like, no way. But we're seeing him playing fairly well.
How much of the gap has he closed between him and Jaden Daniels for Rookie of the Year? I think Jaden Daniels will still get it, but what's the gap? Because for a while it was pretty significant.
I mean, it's a little closer, but I don't think it's like people are questioning yet. Now, if he continues to do crazy stuff at the end here and Jaden Daniels falls down, it gets closer, but it takes both of them moving a little bit, I think, for that to happen.
I think Caleb Williams could also be in the running for.
No, I don't. I don't.
I think he would need a few more wins in order to really be considered for that.
That's
even
true.
if he
has
true. Done some stuff well, because he's done some stuff that's pretty crazy, especially in the beginning of the year. And then, as we saw at the end of this game, he also had a hand in that. As a Rookie of the Year, you would think he would be like, "Okay, this is our time. This is what I got to do."
Yeah.
How about this one? Chargers and Falcons. I've been saying, I think the Falcons are going to win the NFC South. It's been between them and the Buccaneers. Suddenly, Kirk Cousins looked bad this last week, and the Chargers, even with all of his badness, Their defense doing well. Their offense didn't like blow them away, but they kept in it. Chargers won. What do you guys think of this game?
Was it Kirk Cousins who threw 4 interceptions? Is that right? Or was it 3?
I felt like it was 5. Maybe
It was 4.
5?
It was
4?
4. We were
been
all
like
around it.
If you watch back that game, it should have been like 6 or 7. There were
That's
some
what I
like
was thinking.
incredibly bad throws that he was making, and like I don't know what has happened. A lot of it looks like he's just lost all of his arm strength from even 3 weeks ago. Like the pick 6 that he threw to Tariq Still, it was just like it was a lob over to the far side of the field. If you can't hit that quick out, that's a throw every NFL quarterback needs to be able to make. And his was just like a soft toss, slow pitch softball throw over there. And it was an easy interception for Tariq Still. And then he was just making bad decisions, throwing into triple coverage. Some of the interceptions were potential interceptions were dropped by the Chargers. Like Kirk Cousins needs to have a bounce back game. Just hopefully it's not this weekend when he takes on the Vikings,
Right.
when he comes back.
When he returns home.
But I think that's the story of Kirk Cousins, right? There's moments in time where he looks like the most amazing quarterback that's being paid right now. And there's moments of time that makes you question, why is this guy even on the field?
It's the Kurt versus Kirk, right?
Yeah.
Well, for me, most of the time, so when Kirk has been not great, when we've had a bad Kirk day, it's because he's just not making good reads because the pressure is getting to him. It has never really been up until now. Oh, the arm strength is an issue. His arm strength has always been there, but he went from throwing 96-mile-per-hour fastballs to throwing like these 81-mile-per-hour fastballs that you saw from like Jamie Moyer in the end of his career with the Phillies. So when he was 49 years old as a major league pitcher, so it happened in the span of 4 weeks. Like he was making these dart throws all season. So I don't know if there's like an injury there. I don't know if his Achilles is acting up and he can't like plant as well and get his whole body into the throw, but like something is going on that has prevented him from having his fastball now.
I'm not going to lie. From watching that game this week, I can't see how I could still back the Falcons as winning the NFC North. I feel like if you look at Baker Mayfield, he looks a lot more hungry, a lot more able right now. Again, we could have that switch, that Jekyll and Hyde with Kirk Cousins, but until we do, I'm kind of off the Falcons right now. Especially since they're going up against Minnesota this week, and I think Minnesota is going to win that one.
Yeah. Yes. I think after watching the Buccaneers game, I'm not as sold on them. I know they were playing the Panthers. They won in overtime off of a field goal.
Also not inspiring, is it?
There were some questionable things that happened in that game. Not Baker's fault, of course. I think it was more of the Buccaneers defense allowing Bryce Young to look like a competent quarterback. But to me, that's also concerning because do I place more value on Bryce Young than I do on Kirk Cousins? No, I really don't. But I think Kirk will be fine finishing out the year. He just gets these little lulls. And like Josh said, it might be some injury that can be nursed back before the end of the season. I'm sure inside the facility they are doing testing, or Kirk's saying, something's not right. I need to get this checked out. It's just part of playing football.
Well, hopefully he gets it figured out, but for Josh's sake, hopefully not this week.
Yeah, not this week. He can rest up.
It's in Minneapolis this week?
It is, yes.
Oh, good storyline.
Yeah, it'll be fun to. If I'm not there, I'm 2,000 miles away. But it'll be fun to watch on TV and hear the reception that he gets, the boos or the cheers.
We got a few good storylines this week, and then we got a few games with like no storyline or interest at all. We talk about that when we're previewing games. Steelers once again handled the Bengals. It wasn't like crazy blowout, but they did what they needed to. And again, Steelers took over that division. I did not see this at the beginning of the year. Thought the Ravens had this one in the bag. I guess that was all like just looking at Lamar and
Derrick Henry,
and thinking, who in the world's going to be able to stop this place now? But man, the Ravens are sitting looking at a wild card spot while Steelers are doing what they need to control that division.
I feel so bad for Joe Burrow. It doesn't matter who he's playing. There's just a way for the defense to find a loss, and I think he has the most yards in the NFL right now out of any quarterback, most passing yards, number one in the NFL. And their team is let's see here, 4-8.
4-8. But at least he has a
Oh,
Batmobile, right?
yeah, $3
Well,
million Batmobile.
that he can't drive on the streets. He can only, drive around his private mansion, wherever that is. And the Bengals defense, like, it cannot be understated or overstated, sorry, how bad that
Right.
Bengals defense is, or at least against the Steelers. You've got your middle linebacker, Jermaine Pratt, like showing zero effort at times, trying to make these tackles against Najee Harris on every single one of these Russell Wilson dump offs. On run plays, they are, the goal of every run play is to get it blocked up well, and the goal of every defender is to disrupt one or two of the blocks to be able to get into the backfield. But anytime someone runs against the Bengals, the players just can't get off the blocks, so it's going exactly according to how the run play was drawn up. There's no disruption there. They're missing tackles left and right. Like
Yeah,
they're
don't be surprised if defense is their draft goal
yeah.
and their free agency goal, because I mean, it'd be hard for me to be Joe Burrow right now and not say more than he's been, keeping it in the team. He's not been like dumping all over his defense, but man, he's got to feel it. He's got
At,
to.
at, at what point do we cut the defensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Because that has to be a large part of it.
I don't think it's the defensive coordinator. Like, I think you could call almost any scheme right now, and these
There's
guys just
players.
would not be able to get off of the blocks. Like, they get pushed back super easily, even if they're in the right gaps. I saw Jermaine Pratt while I was watching it back. He shot through a gap, got into the backfield, and just kind of the running back got right past him. Like, it was like, obviously some of it falls to the defensive coordinator, the position coaches, for not, I guess, teaching the right techniques to get off of these blocks. But I mean, the execution of the players on these plays has just been dreadful, or at least it was just dreadful in this last game against the Steelers.
And there is nothing as a fan more frustrating than watching your team go out there, get their arms on the guy, and then just kind of let him blow by. And you're just like, make a tackle, especially when it's like 2 or 3 do that every time. Yeah. Let's see what else we got. Texans, Jaguars. We already talked about that game. The suspension and Trevor Lawrence being out. The Texans won by 3. Cardinals, Vikings by 1 point. This was another one of our super, super close games. What do you think about that one, Josh?
Yeah, it showed me that this is a Vikings team that, even though they have played most of their games from ahead and have played most of the time playing with the lead, it showed me that they can be a team that can fall behind and still play a winning style of football. And a lot of that was attributed to Sam Darnold, and a lot of it to the play calling of Kevin O'Connell. They were down 19-6 in this game, and like the Cardinals were getting pressure on a lot of these plays through different simulated pressures, through different blitzes, and that they were bringing up against the Vikings during halftime or immediately after the first drive of the third quarter. Like, the Vikings offensive line started to pick it up a little bit more, and they were able to get these protections a little bit more solid. So I'm not sure if it was just Sam Darnold switching the protection at the line of scrimmage a little bit more, and after seeing where they were blitzing from, or if it was Kevin O'Connell switching the protections and the play calling. But Darnold, after that, looked really, really good. He was firing it to the right place. He was, once again, I think his most underrated and his best trait for the Vikings this season has been his ability to maneuver a pocket when it gets tight. Like, he has that sixth sense for the pressure. The ghosts that were once haunting him are now whispering in his ear and telling him, here, move up in the pocket. So like, he's been doing a great job of that, and was able to make some really nice throws down the field to like Justin Jefferson in tight coverage. And it was a fun game to watch. We were at a movie theater because it was one of my foster son's birthdays. So the baby started crying, and I was like, oh, perfect time for me to, pick him up over to the side and see the end of this Vikings game. And Aaron Jones got some redemption there too, because he fumbled twice, lost one of them in the first quarter, dropped a touchdown pass on a drive that ended with a field goal, and he comes away and scores the game-winning touchdown on a pass from Sam Darnold that was drawn up in a similar way to a play the Vikings had called earlier, that it just made Jones the first read, because Kevin O'Connell saw that Jones had gotten wide open out when he released and said, I don't know if the Cardinals are going to cover it if we call a similar play or a similar route concept to that again. So they did that again. Cardinals didn't cover it just like last time, but they just made Jones the first read instead of the check down read on the play. And Jones was able to get into the end zone for that game-winning touchdown. So a very, very resilient win by Minnesota. And like, I was down on Sam Darnold kind of a little bit earlier than when his downfall started. I'm starting to get back up onto him once again, because the reads that he's making, the things that he's doing, he has improved all season long. When he had success early in the season, it was single read stuff. Now it's this multiple read stuff that he's getting quicker and quicker with. And that's great, especially just in time for the playoffs in a couple of weeks here.
Yeah, it's good to see them getting that together. Even if it was a 1-point win, it was a 1-point win, and you're going to look back and you're going to be like, hey, we're a 10-win team right now. So it's good. We had another 1-point win game happen this weekend. Indianapolis Colts versus the Patriots. And yeah, you can look at the Patriots and say it's a 3-win team, but I do believe Mac Jones. Mac Jones.
Drake May.
Drake May is getting better the longer he's in there. He's getting comfortable with that. What I took away from this game, a couple of things. One, I think Anthony Richardson is looking better since his benching and being brought back. But two, I don't think his receivers are doing him a bit of good down the field. I am tired of him targeting A.D. Mitchell, because A.D. Mitchell is always in the right place with a nice little route, but he just doesn't catch the ball. I don't know if he's afraid of being hit, if he's already looking down the field. I'm just not sure what's going on. I don't know how many times I saw Anthony Richardson throw the ball into the perfect place, whether it was A.D. Mitchell or someone else, and they didn't get it. And him just looking like, come on, guys, I need some help here. And so the other thing I was really taken aback when we pushed all the way down the field at the end and we got our touchdown and we had the chance to tie the game and go to overtime, and we went for a 2-point play at the end. I was like, oh no, we're going to lose. We're going to lose. And then he got it and went in. I'm like, oh boy, we won. Good call, I guess. Good call. It was one of those really scary. I hate those, but now, to be honest, they did I forget how long the drive was. It was a long drive. The defense was worn out. They run down the field. They do have Anthony Richardson, who's a big back. I could see the call. Here's the thing: if it didn't work, man, would Shane Steichen have been the butt of everything going forward? But it did work. We got a win. Now the problem is we've had enough losses that we're really having a tough time even seeing daylight, as far as, if the teams keep winning. The Chargers and the Broncos just keep winning. So the people we're chasing aren't giving us any slack. It's going to be tough for us to make the playoffs, but it was good to see Anthony Richardson do well. I do believe something needs to happen with our receivers, and Reggie Wayne is our receivers coach. And I hate to say it's on him, because I don't feel like it is. It's like you were talking about earlier, Josh. I feel like with that the defense. What team was that we were talking about?
Bengals.
The Bengals.
I don't feel like it's the coordinator or the coach. I feel like it's the players. They're in the right spot. It's touching their hands in the right place, and they just can't. They can't do it. They're not doing what they need to. So we need to get that figured out. For next year, I don't have any disillusionments that we're going to make the playoffs and go anywhere. Even if we would happen to make the playoffs, I have a hard time seeing us going very far. But looking forward, we need to get this figured out with the receivers. But it was nice to win a game and go into a bye, at least on that up note, a little bit of an uptick. We'll see what happens. We play the Broncos when we come back, and I would love to beat them, but they need to lose to somebody else. So They're not playing this week either. So by the
And
time
the Broncos also have the Chiefs on their schedule and the Chargers. So there are some
They
teams
do.
they can lose to if the Colts can take advantage this next week.
Right. Looking forward, we have the better schedule. So if we can beat them, there's still a chance.
Yeah.
So, let's see. We had Seahawks beat the Jets. Not a surprise. Seahawks are starting to look like the favorite in that division, for me at least. I know the Cardinals had been in the lead up until then, but I think the Seahawks. Anything you guys want to say about that fiasco?
The Jets came out real strong in that game. They real strong, and then just could not do anything in the second half to secure the win.
And whose fault do you feel like it was? Was it Aaron? Was it receivers? Was it defense? Who was it?
Yeah, he's been making poor reads. I mean, he threw a pick six when he was with Green Bay. He threw 5 since 2008 until he stopped with Green Bay. 5 pick six.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. In watching Aaron Rodgers the last few weeks, I've seen more throws behind receivers than I've seen in like his whole career. It just seems like he's not hitting where he needs to.
Well, to be fair, he loves the back shoulder. He loves it. I don't think the receivers do, right. And they're not prepared for it.
He is not targeting or completing passes more than 10 yards downfield. Like 21 for 39. I mean, that's his total completion and attempts in that game. And like that's not great. 185 yards, that's less than 10 yards per completion. When he went 10 yards downfield or further, I'm going to do some quick math here. It looks like he was 2 of 14 on those throws, 10 yards downfield for 35 yards. So like it was not like, I don't know if he's afraid to throw it downfield or why he's not able to get it downfield as much, but those big plays aren't there. Everything is happening underneath the sticks. Like he was good. From 10 yards and in, he only had like 3 or 4 incompletions, but the other throws deeper down the field where you can get your big plays with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, those just were not going for him. And then the Seahawks, credit to them because they made some like big mistakes early on that a lot of teams would kind of wither and not be able to bounce back from and would have a hard time regrouping. But got the new head coach, Mike McDonald. He gets them back on track, and Geno Smith is able to have a solid performance, especially in the second half, and get the Seahawks to the win.
Yeah. Well, we'll watch them going forward, but I think Geno Smith might be winning a division and getting to the playoffs, and we'll see where they go from there. This next one, I'm going to do 2 games together. We had Washington easily beating the Titans. I don't think anybody expected any different. And we had the Eagles beating the Ravens, which was a kind of a marquee matchup. Again, we've put the Ravens on this pedestal, but they're a good team. Eagles now 2 games ahead of the Commanders. I think unless something big changes, they're going to win that division, the Eagles. Not what I would have expected earlier in the season when Washington was doing so well and the Eagles looked like they were having trouble. But again, they had injuries to some very key players that once those key players came back, you can see them coming together and looking strong. Yeah,
the Eagles also had to figure out the leadership on their offensive line at the beginning of the season. Jason Kelsey retired, rightfully so. He had a great career. And so he was the marquee player on that offensive line. Replacing that person is not an easy feat, and so they had to kind of figure that out. AJ Brown was out for the first half of the season. That's a significant point. I do want to speak on Saquon Barkley, and I don't think he's getting enough appreciation in the MVP talk. But there's not many people I feel. Transfer teams this past offseason that have had as large of an impact as him. I know Derrick Henry's had a pretty large impact. Josh Jacobs has had a pretty large impact. If you want to take the running back route on their original teams, not wanting to sign them to large deals, those 3 running backs have had a significant difference. But he's just played a different level of football this year. And it helps that there's more of a supporting cast around him as well.
Yeah.
He had a ho-hum day of just 23 carries and 107 yards.
Hold
Like
on.
that was one of his worst performances of the season, and it was a 107-yard performance. That's how good that he is. And like actually like every single running back that switched teams this year has had a good season. It seems like every starting running back, like
Yeah.
the guys you mentioned, and then Aaron Jones has been decent, and then
Mhm.
Tony Pollard has been like one of the few bright spots on the Titans whenever they are in a game script where they can run the football a little bit more.
Yep. Not Ezekiel Elliott, though. Not him.
That's true. That is very true.
Returning to Dallas.
I was going to say he was returning. That puts him in a little different spot. Returning
Yeah.
to a team he'd already been on.
But
So,
he went to the Patriots for a little bit.
yeah. These last games, Rams over Saints. I didn't see anything exciting in that one. Rams beat the Saints. Big deal.
MVS had a pretty clutch touchdown.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize he got signed. He was cut by Buffalo earlier in the season, and then I just thought he was going to go unsigned, and I didn't realize he got signed in New Orleans.
Yeah, he has his highlights, his 4 touchdowns that he's had with the Saints. I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic. This is what, and I'm not comparing these two players, but the 4 highlights that I have seen of his touchdowns are reminiscent of 98 rookie Randy Moss like touchdown highlights. Like he is not the same player obviously as 1998 Randy Moss, but he is getting like these long bomb touchdowns. These like there was one where it's a screen and he goes for like. He when he makes plays, he makes plays. So he's been fun to watch for the Saints. They also lost Taysom Hill in this game for the season. He tore his ACL. So they don't have that guy that he is such like a big part of their offense because of all of the things that he can do and all the versatility that he provides. That's going to take a big bite of what this out of what the Saints can do moving forward.
Yeah, once the powerhouse in the NFC South, I think we're looking at quite a few years here of them just kind of barely keeping afloat. And I think part of that has to do with the way they structured so many big contracts that are still biting them. And it's going to be hard for them to rebuild once they lost Sean Payton and Drew Brees. Bills easily beat the 49ers. We talked about the 49ers team just like can't keep anybody healthy. Bills looking like the Bills.
That was a big lake effect game as well.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if you saw fans trying to get to their seats. You couldn't find any row. There were mountains of snow just all over the stadium. I mean, that's like football weather. It's what I'm here for. And that's
the Bills
a bit harder.
Get that more than anybody, I think.
Packers get it quite a bit too.
Yeah, but it seems like every time I watch a big game where there's that kind of snow, it's a Bills game. I remember the Bills versus the Colts where people were helping shovel out seats prior to the game. Like the fans were all up there and some dude with no shirt. And you're like, who is that guy? It's a Bills fan, obviously. So,
a couple things. James Cook, despite the snow, still was the fastest ball carrier in the NFL. He almost ran up to 22 miles per hour, despite having in the snow. So big credit to James Cook. And then how about that touchdown on I don't know if it was planned or if it was just complete improvisation, but that was one of the coolest like looking plays that I've seen in quite some time, where you throw it out to to Amari Cooper, and then it didn't look like it was planned. He looks like he's stopped and he's like, I need to get rid of this football. Tosses it to the guy that's there, and it just happens to be Josh Allen.
Who
and
just
he's
goes.
and that's
goes for the touchdown.
That is just like, I like that we've been kind of seeing it a little bit this year, is teams, whether purposefully or just based on the situation, are kind of using the lateral a little bit more in their offense. In not just like these hook and ladder situations where you're trying to get down the field quickly, but like as a part of their regular offense. So it's like potentially one of the way that the game continues to evolve, and we got to see it right there on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I have felt like I've seen that more this year than in previous years combined. So.
Yeah. We did have, with the victory in this game, the first time this NFL season a team clinched their division.
Oh yeah, and who was this?
The Buffalo Bills.
That's right. Let's just kind of move into that, because the last game is Broncos-Browns. We already talked about that. Broncos won. Bo Nix starting to take steps forward. Browns, Jameis Winston throwing lots of touchdowns for both teams. But let's move into this kind of clinching, playoff eliminating kind of conversation. And Brandon, why don't you just kind of take us there since you already started with the Bills and talk us through some of this?
Yeah, Bills clinched the AFC East. Not a surprise. They're 10-2, second place in the divisions. The Miami Dolphins at 5-7. Pretty hard to climb back from that at this point in the season.
You got a 10-win, a 5-win, and 2 3-win teams. It's a very lopsided.
Only one of those 3-win teams have been eliminated so far. The New England Patriots, with their loss to the Indianapolis Colts, are now out of playoff contention. They are 3-10, and I guess we'll go from there. We do have another AFC South news with an elimination. The Jacksonville Jaguars at 2-10 are also out of playoff contention. Tennessee Titans probably not too far behind at 3-9. Expect Houston and Indianapolis to be both fighting for winning the division / a wild card spot. I'm not entirely sure at this point of the season if we're going to get 2 AFC South teams in the playoffs or if we're just going to see one.
I'll say this: last year at this time, there was I think it was a 94.7 or maybe 97.4. For some reason, those numbers are in my head. Percent chance that the Jaguars would win the division, and they ended up not making the playoffs at all. If you remember that,
they were
last year
8-3 at one point last season. The Jaguars missed
the playoffs.
Just a major collapse. So there's still like stuff that could happen with some of these teams, but like I feel like at this point, like last year we did have a 3-6 Packers and 3-6 Rams team work their way back into the playoffs, but like I feel like this year it's got to be one of these teams that's kind of middling around 500 at least in this point in the season. If that's going to be one of those shocker squads.
Yeah, I mentioned that the AFC is in a different looking place in the past year and in most past years. There with the 7 playoff teams on each division, we've had after you get the 4 kind of locked in for their division winners, we've had between 6 and 7 teams with a strong chance of still making that wild card. As a matter of fact, most teams had at least a 10% chance to make the wild card playoffs in the last week of the season. This year, it's different in that you have like 3 teams. I think it's the Broncos, the Chargers, and there's one more teams that have a 75% chance or more to make it. The Colts have like a 27% chance. And then after that, you don't even have somebody with a 10% chance following. So it's a lot harder in that last week for there to be as much shakeup as last year, but there could probably still be some. I earlier said I didn't think the Jaguars could get the number 1 overall pick, but I was wrong. They still can, can't they? They've been eliminated. They only have 2 wins. That's as much as few as anyone, so they could.
Yeah, it's possible. Which would be their 3rd first-round overall pick in 5 years.
3rd in 5 years, yeah. It would,
3rd in 5 years.
And this time, though, they wouldn't necessarily need to go quarterback. They could use it on something to build around Trevor Lawrence. Like teams like the Raiders and Browns probably have to go with one of the top quarterbacks. And what's not a fantastic quarterback draft class this year.
Maybe the Giants also.
The Giants too, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we'll see how desperate teams are. Maybe they trade back to 4 or 5, depending on how it shakes up, and get some additional draft capital too.
Any other clinches or eliminations we should be aware?
Yes, we have the Kansas City Chiefs win over the Raiders. Did something for both teams. The Chiefs clinched at least a wild card spot. They have not won their division yet. The division race is much closer. Chiefs at 11-1. Chargers at 8-4, Broncos at 8-5. They have not completely run away with the division yet. They are still slotted for the first overall seed with the mathematical assumptions. And the Raiders at 2-10 are out of playoff contention. They are eliminated. That is all of the AFC. The NFC, a bit simpler, a bit closer of a race overall. With the New York Giants loss this past week, at 2-10. They are now eliminated from playoff contention. No one in the NFC has clinched a spot, although there was a mathematical way for Detroit to at least get a wild card this past week. That did not happen. That can still happen this upcoming week. And we don't have any other teams that are out and eliminated yet, but Chicago is close. The Panthers are close. I expect the two of those teams to get out in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
And I believe you were saying before the podcast that there is still a statistical chance that the Lions could miss it all with 11 wins.
That is true. Anyone in the NFC, it is 100% up for grabs right now. There is no one that is guaranteed a playoff spot, except the Giants cannot get in. That's it.
That's crazy.
Poor New York.
Yeah, so the NFC, a still more up in the air conference than the AFC at this point. But in the next week or two, we're going to start seeing a lot of solidification on both sides of that. Let's take some time. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
But the division races, I think, though, are going to go down to the wire for both the South and West. Those should be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the West being like the tightest grouping of wins, losses, and it still is. That's been the case for weeks now. Seahawks at 7-5 are still only one game ahead of both the Cardinals and the Rams, who are only one game ahead of the 49ers. So 49ers, like we said before, I'm starting to be less. I thought they were going to be the winners of the division, but and they still could. They're only 2 games behind. Is it likely? Probably not, but could happen. Let's move on
NFC
to
North
our,
as well.
What's that?
NFC North as well. At least the top 3.
Yeah, the Bears are not in that conversation at all. I don't think. I don't think they could come back. What do they need? 7 games to catch up to the Lions?
They would not be able to. They would not be able to win the division.
No,
because the best they could do is 9-8. They would not be able to get second place in the division.
No.
And if the Packers win one more time, they would not be able to get third place in the division. So, yeah,
they're probably on their way out. Let's look at our upcoming games. The strange thing is usually Thursday night is kind of a throwaway game, but I think Thursday night is one of the 2 games that I'm most interested to see. I know it's the one Brandon's most interested to see this week, and probably the one Josh is watching very closely to see what happens, because it would matter for him if the Packers beat the Lions. But talk about this upcoming game and what you hope to see from it, as if I didn't know.
I think the big thing for the Lions right now is they're plagued with injuries. And it's that point of the season. They've played really hard all year, but it's catching up to some of their players that are not going to be in the game tonight. The key point for the Packers to win this game is going to be not turning the ball over, because we've seen what happens when Packers turn the ball over. Historically, they don't do too well, and most NFL teams are in the same boat. And I've seen what Detroit's been able to do with takeaways. We do have a tie at the moment for the 2 top interception leaders in the NFL belong to the Packers and the Lions. Xavier McKinney, free agent to the Packers. Guy, I think, good argument for Defensive Player of the Year. Could come in and get his 8th interception. You could say the same thing on Detroit, them getting their 8th interception of the year. And then on the Packers defensive side, we need Quay Walker to play the same way he has these past 3 weeks. He has been the best player he has ever looked on the field these past 3 weeks. And before that, he has just been a complete dud for the past couple seasons. So if we get a good Quay Walker and don't turn the ball over, I feel really good about our chances.
So you said at the beginning, you said a lot of injuries. Did you say that about Detroit or the Packers?
Detroit.
Now, tell me about the Packers, too, because I feel like they have some big players also not playing.
They do. I don't know if Jair Alexander's officially been ruled out. He played very limited snaps last week, and I assume it's going to be the same this week, very limited in his snaps. The key players I'm really looking to have that are not out are going to be Jordan Love. We know he's had injuries so far this season. I do feel comfortable if Malik Willis has to come in. I don't think that'll be the case, as the past 6 weeks have told us. We have not needed him unless we are blowing a team out. Josh Jacobs, when he's healthy and he's running the ball, he's looking good. He's looking real good. And having those two pieces on offense, I think, is going to be the most important thing. The offensive line is relatively healthy, not allowing a ton of pressure coming to Jordan Love, and that'll be key for Green Bay.
What are your thoughts on this one, Josh?
I think it's going to be a fun game for people that like to watch offensive linemen move people around. The Packers have one of the best gap running schemes in the league. The Lions have one of the best zone running schemes in the league, and a lot of it just has to do with what they do with their offensive line. For the Packers on their end, if you remember the 90s comedy Happy Gilmore, there's an instance where Happy Gilmore, who is a fantastic driver of the golf ball, can't really putt, can't really work on his short game, and so that keeps him from reaching his full potential. And there's a scene in the movie, though, after he learns how to putt on a mini golf course with a giant clown head, that he says, "Uh-oh, Happy learned how to putt. Uh-oh, Matt LaFleur learned how to make the best run design scheme in all of the NFL." And he did that because he had to when Malik Willis was starting. And they had a couple of games where they basically had to run the same run concepts and disguise them in different ways. And now that's just become a fixture of their offense. And like the thought process is, well, if Malik Willis can't screw it up, and we can still be effective, a much better quarterback like Jordan Love is only going to thrive more so with this sort of run game. And you're seeing like this spinner counter zone where they bring Jaden Reed into the backfield and kind of use him as a decoy, and they fake it to him, and then they run a counter play to Josh Jacobs, and the offensive line, it's Swan Lake, like they're all in unison with one another, like, and it's like this beautiful thing if you're not a Pack, or if you're unless you're not a Packers fan like me, but then you can't just discount Jaden Reed, because sometimes when he goes in that orbit motion, they're going to toss it out to him on a sweep, or they're going to run the jet sweep and give it to him. So like it's this kind of double-edged sword. You really got to key in on some of this. If you're on the defensive lineman, you got to read your man. If you make one mistake, if you give yourself the wrong leverage right off the snap, it's over for you. And the same thing goes for the Lions, where they like to bring their wide receivers into block. They bring them tight to the formation and just create more and more gaps for their running backs to read, and just get the numbers game and the leverage game out in front of you. And like they usually have more numbers at the line of scrimmage because guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown are willing to block and do it well. And guys like, Khalif Raymond and all of these wide receivers that they have are willing to, and they don't need to like just push a defensive end back. They just need to like pin him down for a second so the running back can get to the outside. So the run game is going to be a key part of tonight's game. And I think it's going to be an advantage to the Packers because the Lions don't have their top run stopper in DJ Reader. The Lions don't have their left tackle in Taylor Decker. And the Lions are also missing Josh Pascal and Levi, I'm going to butcher this last name, Onwuzurike. So those are three defensive linemen, one offensive lineman that are going to be missing from the Lions. That should give the Packers, I think, an advantage in the ground game, and make it less likely that Jordan Love turns the ball over, and it just allows him to ball out and get some of these like route concepts that Matt LaFleur has always been good with. That's going back to the Happy Gilmore metaphor. That's his driver is getting those route concepts to like fool with the zone defenses, even though Detroit mostly runs man, but to fool with different defenses and get guys open and just scheme them open. Like mixing both of those is just deadly for the Packers and the teams that have to go up against them.
So if, as you're both hoping, strangely for you, Josh, but both hoping that the Packers win tonight, then this next game, Atlanta at Minnesota, this happens one of our Sunday noon games, begins to matter a lot, because if Minnesota wins, then they're tied with Detroit. If they lose, they're tied with Green Bay. Is that right?
Correct.
So So, going to have implications if, in fact, the Packers beat the Lions. If the Lions beat the Packers, the Lions stretch their lead, and then the Packers are really hoping that the Falcons come through and keep Minnesota from taking off too far as well. But what do you guys think is going to happen? I happen to think that we're still going to see Kirk Cousins. We're going to see him do better than he did last time, but I think Minnesota still pulls this one out.
Yeah, I think so too. Minnesota has been getting a lot of pressure recently. And really, the reason why the Cardinals were able to get out to a big lead and move their offense so effectively down the field was because Kyler Murray could escape that pressure. Like the Vikings players sometimes blitz, sometimes just rushing four, but like they were pushing the pocket back. Even some of their reserves, like we're starting to see Dallas Turner and Jalen Redmond, a couple of rookies, one undrafted, one first round. They're making, good plays, pass rushing, staying in their lanes so that these quarterbacks cannot escape as easily. Kyler Murray obviously is a different animal in that effect. He was able to escape and get some yards down the field on some of those improvised plays. Kirk Cousins is not going to be able to do that. He has not,
Right.
he is less mobile than he has ever been. So they need to rely on Bijan Robinson. The Vikings have also been one of the top teams against the run this season. So, they didn't get chewed up by James Conner. They didn't get chewed up by as much by Josh Jacobs. They kind of did, but also they didn't because the Packers had to throw the ball a little bit more. But so like the only run game that's really had a huge success against them has been the Lions run game. And that was basically boiled down to two big plays. So if they can prevent those big plays and hem in Bijan Robinson, I think this is a potential blowout, especially if Kirk Cousins still doesn't have his fastball, because he's not going to be able to make the throws necessary in the intermediate parts of the field on those quick outs as well to have the good timing throws, the good precision throws that he normally does. And the Vikings should be able to have a field day with that. Maybe his arm strength comes back to him. Maybe there was something going on. And in that case, it's a brand new ball game. But if we're looking at what we saw last week against the Vikings defense that has been good pretty much all season long, I think it should be a couple possession win for Minnesota against Atlanta.
I see you shaking your head, Brandon. Are you in agreement with this take?
Yeah, I think it's a really good take. I can speak a little bit on Minnesota's offensive side. I think Aaron Jones is going to be a big X factor in this. And I say that because historically, when he's had a multi-turnover game like he did this past week, he goes quite some time without another turnover. It's top of mind, and he's still producing a lot of yards. And so if I'm Minnesota, I know Aaron Jones is working on it. He's not going to be turning the ball over. I'm going to use him in the pass game. I'm going to use him in the run game. I'm going to scheme him every which way possible because I know that's when he's most effective.
So we got agreement from you two on both those games. I still feel like Detroit's going to win tonight, and I feel like Minnesota's going to win on Sunday, for whatever that means, just to throw that out. Then we have a whole spate of games that really I could care less about. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh's going to win. Miami, New York Jets, I don't care who wins. That's just not that exciting of a game. Same with New Orleans and New York Giants. We got Carolina, Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia easily wins that one. Tampa Bay, Las Vegas. Tampa Bay, I think, is going to win that one. Jacksonville, Tennessee, who cares? Then you get to Seattle, Arizona. This one actually begins to matter here because they're both still trying to win that division. And I think Geno Smith... It's tough because, like you said, Kyler Murray has a way of getting out and away and can push. They know each other really well in this division, and they always seem to play each other really hard, and what you expect to happen doesn't. It could be a case where Arizona ties it back up, and Seattle and Arizona take it all the way down to the wire of who's going to win that division, and I could very much see that happening this game. What are your guys' thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think the winner of this game is going to overall determine the winner of the NFC West.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
I think it's going to be that important, which, of course, as we know, you win the division, you get a playoff spot. and I expect all
and a
stops.
home playoff game.
Yeah, I expect all stops on this organ to be pulled for this game on both teams. It's a game I am not going to want to miss watching.
That sounds like a marquee almost, or a my at least.
Yeah, well, I got the Packers as my marquee.
I had no doubt there. It is going to be a marquee game, Detroit versus Packers for most people. Any thoughts from you on this one, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, Seahawks were able to stop the run last time they went up against the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going to try to emphasize the run a little bit more because Seattle is a team that we've seen at multiple points during this year has kind of struggled. If you can get the good blocking, and there were a lot of power plays that Arizona ran against Minnesota this last week that worked with the guards pulling, the guard and tackle pulling from the backside, and kind of getting the blocks down for James Conner. I think Arizona can have a little bit more success on the ground and find a way to pull this one off against Seattle.
I think it's going to be interesting because I do feel like the Cardinals are going to win this week. We get to San Francisco versus Chicago, and San Francisco needs this to stay even possible. Chicago, like we said, I don't even think they're possible at this point. And
they are possible mathematically. Likelihood, not really. Likelihood, not really.
Right. Buffalo, Rams. Buffalo, I think, will win that one.
Yeah.
Chargers, Chiefs. I would love to see Chargers win this one, and I think it's totally doable. But I've thought every week is totally doable, and every week they somehow still barely win.
25-23 Kansas City. 2-point win.
You're voting for Kansas City again. I'm going
25-23.
I'm going to say I don't think either one of these offenses have looked amazing, but I'm going to go with the Chargers. I'm going to say Chiefs get their second loss.
All right.
I'm going Chargers
here for it.
Too.
All right.
And then Cowboys, Bengals.
I think this game is going to be more interesting than we think. Both teams are awful on offense and have the potential for high-powered, or awful on defense, but have the potential for high-powered offense.
I was about to say
I got to switch that. Switch that. I mean, I talked earlier. Joe Burrow has more yards than any quarterback in the NFL right now, and they have 4 wins, right? And I'm not particularly inspired by what Dallas does defensively. So I think Joe Burrow is going to have another heyday. But that also means Cooper Rush is going to have a heyday. And so you get back and forth. Bengals probably lose by like half a point. And I don't even know how that's possible, but they're going to find a way to make it happen.
They could wheel Ezekiel Elliott out on a wheelchair, and the Bengals would still have trouble tackling him. It's going to be a rough game, I think, for the Bengals. But their offense can also get it done. So I think Brandon's spot on is that this can be a high scoring game, kind of like we thought. I mean, who would have thought like Broncos and Browns would be one of the better games of the year? Both of them have decent defenses at least, and like offenses. Broncos have a decent one. Browns, Jameis Winston is a grab bag. It ended up being like an offensive shootout. The Cowboys defense has been better since Micah Parsons got back, but it still hasn't been like elite. And they're still, where's Deron Bland? I think he's out now for the year. He hasn't played. The corners aren't as good. They have like a good front seven, but the secondary is struggling. Like Trayvon Diggs has taken several steps back over the last couple of years. But I think it's going to be a shootout. Which I got to go with the Bengals probably winning that because they have the quarterback that can survive in shootouts. I'll go for Cincinnati.
Man, I really want to go for Cincinnati, but I keep thinking of that defense.
Yeah.
It's just so hard. It's just so hard because, But if you got to go for one, I'm going to go for the one that I would like to win. So
Cincinnati.
I'm going to go for the Bengals. Yeah. Any last words before we sign this one off this week?
Really. So the last show that we did, Matthew, you and I, we talked about how there were a bunch of bad games and we were going to see some upsets that week. And we threw out, it's going to probably be one of the crazy ones, not one of the ones that you'd expect. And the one I threw out was Cowboys over Commanders as a write-off. You threw out, that it would be, Oh, I just had it in my mind, and I just it was the Browns over the Steelers, and
Yeah.
we were like,
Or Browns over the Broncos.
yeah, yeah. So we're like, oh, these could never happen. And you know, the Broncos or the Browns beat the Steelers on that Thursday night game. Because we didn't have a show last week with Thanksgiving,
Right. That's
so,
it.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, and then the Cowboys beat the Commanders 34-26. So how about some Nostradamus for us?
That's right,
I'm going to go with
guys.
another upset for this week, and this one I believe in Bryce Young. He has been the best. He has outplayed since coming back. He has outplayed C.J. Stroud in that span of time, and is looking very, very good. He's no longer skittish. He's stepping up in the pocket, and he is going to take down the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend.
Wow. That is a bold. Let's all go with a bold one. What's your bold one, Brandon?
Man, I cannot go that bold. Let's say Jets over Dolphins.
Well, I was going to say that, but I'm like, that doesn't feel very bold at all, does it?
It's a 3-win team over a 5-win team.
True. I mean, as much as any of these matchups, what are you really going to get? Am I going to say Cleveland over Pittsburgh? No.
Giants over Saints.
Giants over Saints. Again, it's the same spread of wins there. 2-win difference.
Or how about this? Packers over Lions. That's my Packers over Lions.
Panthers Eagles is really the only
that's the massive one.
It's the only one that would be a massive. I guess Raiders Buccaneers maybe. Or,
I'm going to go for
Rams,
a really
Bills,
bold one that
Rams,
you guys
Bills.
are not going to. I was just going to say, I think I'm going to say Rams are going to somehow catch the Bills asleep and win one, and we're all going to be like, what in the world are the Bills who we thought they were? And then the Bills are going to continue to dominate from there.
Yeah.
So my big one, Rams over Buffalo. Your big one, Josh, is Carolina over the Eagles. That's got to be the biggest.
We need a word larger than big.
Yeah.
For that. That's
and then Brandon's minuscule jump is Packers over the Lions.
Packers over Lions. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I think that's going to do it for us here today on the Football Fandemic. Come back next week to see which of us was Nostradamus or if all three of us were here on the Football Fandemic. Thanks for joining us, guys.